It is 10 a.m. on the East Coast, and it's 5 p.m. in Gaza, where the humanitarian situation is becoming more and more dire. A lack of fuel is making it difficult to produce clean water in the enclave. In a statement, a UN humanitarian official said, quote, every hour that passes with Israel preventing the provision of safe drinking water in the Gaza Strip puts Gazans at risk of dying of thirst and disease. Israel must stop using water as a weapon of war.
In the West Bank, there have been reports of clashes this morning in the city of Jenin. Israel's military said one of its aircraft struck Palestinian militants who opened fire on IDF troops. This comes as family members and friends said goodbye to Israeli Corporal Noah Marciano. The 19-year-old was taken hostage by Hamas on October 7th. Her body was found near Al-Shifa hospital, where the IDF claims to have uncovered a Hamas tunnel and a large number of weapons. Our Imtiaz Tyab traveled with Israeli soldiers to the Al-Shifa hospital, which is now the focus of the country's military assault. Imtiaz, good morning.
Well, central to Israel's justification of its devastating military campaign on Gaza is its claim that Hamas's armed wing has been running extensive operations from within the Al-Shifa hospital. Now, the only way for international journalists to enter Gaza is with the Israeli military. We were taken to the sprawling medical complex by one of Israel's elite special forces units. We could only go where they wanted to take us and see what they wanted to show us, but Israel's army had no control over our final report.
We traveled deep into Gaza under the cover of darkness in one of Israel's most sophisticated armored personnel carriers, called the Nama, or Tiger.
This armored personnel vehicle is the only way for us to get to the Al-Shifa hospital, which is now surrounded by Israeli forces. It's been the epicenter of its battle here in Gaza City.
As we pass through the battered streets of what was once a vibrant city, home to nearly 800,000 Palestinians, a view screen shows the ghostly wreckage of building after building, and not a single person in sight. Back outside, and we're met by Israel's Shaldag Air Force unit, known for its commando-style raids.
We're walking through the streets of Gaza City, and even in the darkness, you can see nearly everything's in ruins.
These special forces led the raid on the Al-Shifa hospital complex and have been searching it since Wednesday. And this is what they found. A tunnel they say is proof Hamas fighters used the hospital as a command center. We were then taken inside a small one-story building where we were shown a collection of grenades, rifles, and ammunition apparently taken from a vehicle also found on the hospital's grounds.
The criticism is that the evidence provided so far is underwhelming, that it doesn't show unequivocally that this was a Hamas command center.
Well, it will take us time.
Just a second, this was not just one Hamas headquarters. This was at least 3 headquarters working simultaneously in the city and outside the city. And
this is a level of detail which we're not seeing, though. If you do, there's 3 separate command centers, but we can't see any of that.
This is it's not something you can see right now.
The Biden administration backs Israel's claims the Al-Shifa hospital was used by Hamas's armed wing. According to the Gaza Ministry of Health, around 650 patients, many critically ill, still remain inside, but we were not allowed access to any of them.
And this morning, the Israeli military announced that it had recovered the body of the 19-year-old soldier Noah Marciano, who was one of the Israelis abducted on October 7th. They say they found her body in a, quote, structure adjacent to the Shifa hospital in Gaza. Now, it's not clear whether this was the same structure where they found the body of 66-year-old hostage Yehudith Weiss, whose remains were also found just yesterday. Anne-Marie, live.
Imtiaz, thank you.
In an interview with CBS News Evening News anchor and managing editor Norah O'Donnell, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country's ground operations in Gaza had brought Israel closer to securing the release of hostages held by Hamas. Netanyahu also spoke about Israel's raid on the Al-Shifa hospital and Gaza's future.
Well, we're closer than we were before we began the ground action, because the ground action has put pressure on Hamas to achieve a ceasefire. We'll have a temporary ceasefire if we can get our hostages back. I don't think it serves that purpose for me to elaborate further on that.
This is the first chance to hear from you since the targeted raid on Al-Shifa hospital. If Hamas is using a hospital as a command center, that is a war crime. Do you have concrete evidence?
Of course. First of all, we had concrete evidence that there were terrorist chieftains and terrorists, their terrorist minions, in the hospital. And in fact, they fled. As our forces approached, they fled. That's why we had no firefight. We entered that hospital with Arabic-speaking Israeli doctors, with incubators, and we had no firefight. But Hamas was using the patients in that hospital as a human shield. And on level -2, we found a command and control center, military communications, coded equipment. We found bombs. We found weapons. And we also found terror tunnels in the hospital compound. We want overall military responsibility to prevent the reemergence of terror. We're not seeking to occupy. That's not our goal. But our goal is to make sure that what happens there is different. To do that, we have to demilitarize Gaza, and we have to de-radicalize Gaza.